Hello there guys and girls, my name is Kaelaris. This is the first time I've ever done a video blog or something like that, so do bear with me. It's going to be the most ghetto video that I've ever done in my last 4 or 5 years of broadcasting experience, so I apologize in advance for this just being a complete rant, no editing, not going to do any of that YouTube like saying one sentence, then cutting the video, then saying one sentence, then cutting the video. This is going to be entirely about my experiences and how things were for me at the very beginning of a game that I truly love. And a game that made me absolutely fall in love with this company that is Blizzard. Excuse me, I'm a little bit ill at the moment. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Kaelaris, or James Carroll, and for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been a professional esports commentator. What does that entail? I've commentated StarCraft for a good portion of that, StarCraft 2. I cast Heroes of the Storm. Yeah, Heroes of the Storm. You'd think I would be good at speaking. I've cast Heroes of the Storm for a long time now, thoroughly enjoying that. I've also casted a couple of other games, Guild Wars 2 quite a bit, which has been thoroughly enjoyable to work with ArenaNet, and also last weekend I actually cast Clash Royale, which was very, very fun to do. So, yeah, this entire video is just basically going to be a nostalgia rant, basically, as well as my experiences and kind of what I loved about vanilla, and why it is so near and dear to my heart, because I would love to be able to go back in an official capacity and do that again. It was very, very important to me. That is, vanilla and World of Warcraft has actually shaped my life a lot. That sounds kind of weird, I suppose, to maybe a lot of people out there, but if I think about like all of the events in my life, like loving video games, obviously I played a lot of video games before World of Warcraft, but World of Warcraft was really something that, in a community aspect, got me very, very heavily involved with a lot of people. I actually ended up moving to a completely different country for a girl that I met, which you may or may not know if you actually listened to some of my interviews in the past involving esports. So I moved to Finland because of a girl that I met on World of Warcraft, and I lived there for 3 years, which then in turn led me to training up to get this job and move forward. So you can say that World of Warcraft's had quite an impact on my life. So let's start from the beginning. Let's start from the very, very get-go. Obviously been an avid gamer for a very long time. I was into MMOs from a very, very early age, back when Ultima Online was a thing. I actually started another game called Legend of Mia, which a lot of people don't really know too well. It was a Korean MMO, and it was extremely grindy. Then from there, I went on to Ragnarok Online, which again, very, very grindy Korean MMO. Then we played Final Fantasy XI, me and my brother, and we were so eager to get onto that, we actually ordered, because the American servers came out before, so we went onto the American servers and we played there and stuff like that. But all the while this was going on, we played Warcraft 3, we played Warcraft 2 before that, way before that, played StarCraft 1 way before that. We already kind of understood, knew about Blizzard. It was something that was very, very common knowledge to us. You know, Blizzard's pushing towards this MMO that's coming out, World of Warcraft. So we got very, very hyped for Vanilla's release. It was very cool. And the first thing that really popped out to us was when we started playing Vanilla, is that there was a very good balance of grind, which we were used to because of Korean MMOs, and also questing. It was the perfect balance for us, and it really kind of struck home from the very, very word go. Something that really always hit home to me heavily with Vanilla was the world felt like a world. Like, the ground mounts were the only thing that you would actually have to get around. Not to mention, I mean, everyone's already talked about like how much and how long it took to actually get ground mounts. And that, yeah, is something that was, again, the grindy thing, we were used to it, whatever. But when the world felt like a world, you always felt the requirement to, like, explore. With the limited transportation that you had, you felt the desire to explore. And that was something that really kind of put vanilla in such a cool place for us at the time, with other MMOs that we'd already played alongside it. It was very cool. It was very cool. Let me talk about some of the other aspects as well. I've made a load of notes here as well, so this could go on for a little while. I do apologize. So, one thing that always felt really, really cool during vanilla was that the weight of item rarity is, to me, exactly how it should be in an MMO. Commons, whilst leveling up, had impact. They helped you out considerably. Leveling was not an easy task in vanilla, and by no means should it be, because I mean, for a good portion of players, it was part of the journey. It was part of an epic journey that you had to kind of go through to then reach endgame. Endgame wasn't really the only thing. I mean, I'm all for endgame being very flushed out, very, very much so an important factor, but the leveling experience was extremely important as well in vanilla. And yeah, it took a while, and I ran into an interesting situation where I was level 55, I was in winter spring, and I was like, oh, I don't really know where else to go to quest. So I sat there for, like, I guess, I don't know, maybe a week or something, and there was some ghosts on a frozen lake, and I would just grind those. And fully enough, it actually got me a lot of gold, moving forwards to actually then buy my epic mount later down the line. Nowhere near enough, because at the very beginning of vanilla, it was difficult to actually get all that gold. But it was something that was, I just did. Got to max level after that, and that was cool. But back to the item rarity kind of system that did come along. Like, okay, so we got commons when you were leveling up, and they did have impact. They had significant impact on your leveling experience. They made you vastly stronger. But every so often, you may get a rare from a quest, and oh my god, when you got that rare, like when you got a weapon as a rare, I'm thinking about something like I think it was the Whirlwind Axe for warriors. Like, that was so cool. I was a hunter at the time, so I can't recall getting too many rares whilst I was leveling up. Maybe somewhere I was going in dungeons and things like that. But that was a cool feeling. That was a really cool feeling to actually have. It was a massive upgrade during leveling. Massive, massive upgrade. And it was memorable. A very memorable moment when you would get, like, a rare or two during leveling or whatever. But moving on from the leveling experience, from when it came to items, I can remember very, very clearly, doing dungeons for a very long time once I'd hit level 60, and my ultimate goal from that point on was to get Beastalker armor. Get full Beastalker armor. I'd started at very close to the beginning of the European servers. They came out a little bit later. I think it was like 5 months after America, or something like that. Maybe half a year after America. I think September was the American release, and then it came out in February in Europe. So they had it for a long time compared to us. But I was the second hunter on my server to have full Beastalker armor. And Beastalker armor back then, or Dungeon 1 armor, that was a huge deal. That was a huge deal in preparation for raids, and it took a long time to get that dungeon set armor completed. 8 pieces out of 8 pieces, with the set bonuses. Not necessarily great set bonuses, even, I should say, but I felt like a boss. I felt like a boss in full blue set armor. In full blue set armor. I can remember it so well. I was so proud that I was the second hunter on my server to get full Beastalker armor. It was a massive effort. It felt extremely rewarding. And this is only the transition from commons to blues. This is only the transition from commons to blues. And it was a great way for me to be set up and good to go for raiding for the next point of progression, which was something that was super cool. During my grind to actually getting full beast orc armor, doing Scholomance, in fact, Scholomance, or was it Strathhome? No, it was Scholomance. I was in a group and I saw my first ever epic drop. And it was the Dwarven Hand Cannon. And I can remember very clearly my entire group was like, oh my god, the dwarf, like an epic has dropped. Like this Dwarven Hand Cannon has dropped. It was level 55 epic, I think it was. Significantly better than all the blues that you could have at that point in time. My mind explodes. Like, I'm the only hunter in this group, and the group as a whole, or some people in the group, were like, oh, let's all roll for it, let's sell it. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a hunter, I could use this. Thankfully and luckily, my group leader, or like, I was in just a group with just random people at this point in time, decided that, like, yeah, they thought it was fair to give it to the hunter because it could use it. And that was the best day ever. My first ever epic. It was the best day ever. I remember bringing my brother in, like, being like, oh my god, look at what I've got and stuff like that. And my brother, actually, I was speaking to him today about this. He saw that I got a Dwarven Hand Cannon. And he started World of Warcraft a little bit later than me. And when he saw me get the Dwarven Hand Cannon, he was using a bow at the time, but this was a big deal, our first ever epic. And he said that he would, whenever he saw that, he was like, wow, that's super cool. I want to use a gun now, just because I had this epic, this Dwarven Hand Cannon. That was I can remember it so clearly, and it was 10 years ago, like, so clearly. I'll get to the... Oh god, this video is going to be so long, I apologize. I will get to the very crux of all of the points later on, like culmination, like concluding things, but there's plenty more to go down, so let's keep going. So that was the transition from commons to rares, and then, like, we're slowly getting on towards the epics here. Obviously that left me in good stead to go into raiding, into Molten Core and stuff like that. And I ended up going into Molten Core. After, of course, a little bit of grinding fire resistance gear, which is another thing that was kind of cool. I remember very clearly grinding Lord Incendius in Blackrock Depths for the blue fire resist braces. And at the time, and still I think now, you would get random enchants on some items. These braces always came with fire resist, and what you would do is you would go in over and over with a group, and you would try and acquire fire resist braces that had a good stat for you. And I remember getting fire resist braces with random fire resist enchant on them. So I was the luckiest person alive. I had found the greatest braces for fire resistance to go into raiding. So I was super proud of just these common blue braces because of how useful they were going into raiding, making myself a little bit more sturdy and tanky, to be part of a community, a raid group, you know, to give them a little bit more stability. To be able to heal me easier, to make sure I don't take as much damage, things like that. So we get into raiding, and obviously, like, we get a couple of epics or whatever, like, we start getting fully epicked out or whatever, but getting fully epicked out took a lot of time in the beginning. I didn't take Classic as seriously as I would have liked to, and I'll get onto that a little bit later. I only did Molten Core fully, and did maybe half of Blackwing Lair, I want to say. But one thing that was super important when I was doing those raids is that I never felt unsatisfied with my progression. I think it was because of the time and effort like I put in and stuff like that. because it wasn't that much. Not compared to how I transitioned into TBC, how I raided in Wrath of the Lich King, where I did all the hard modes and all that stuff, and I was pretty high level in terms of raiding for sure. But Vanilla, I was never really at a high level of raiding. But one thing that stood out during all of that raiding of Molten Core, of Blackwing Lair, and then potentially moving forwards, is that I knew that there was always something to work for. I knew that there was always something extra. There was always something more. And I've always been a big proponent and a big fan of true progression. Like back in vanilla, there were Molten Core guilds whilst people were raiding Blackwing Lair. There were Blackwing Lair guilds whilst people were raiding AQ40 after the event, which was another fantastic thing, the world event, to be able to open AQ40, which I very fondly remember being involved into, you know. I'm trying to think, where else are we? What was my point? Yeah, so if you were at that tier, if you were at that point where you're like, I'm pretty well geared up at the moment, you know, now it's time for me to go into my MC guild. You would join an MC guild, you would start going for Molten Core, and you would raid together, you would progress together, and eventually you become the Blackwing Lair guild. And that kind of progression overall, it didn't matter to me that other people were ahead of me. It never ever mattered to me, because in my opinion, when it comes to an MMO, you should get as far as you put the effort in for. You should. I think it's a fallacy that everyone is entitled to see all of the content without the similar amount of effort that people should put in to actually progress and progress and progress. If I came to you and said, here is Metal Gear Solid 5. Alright? Here is Metal Gear Solid 5. But you're not very good at playing this Metal Gear Solid 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to skip the middle portion of the game, which you can't get past because you're not really good enough to get past it, and we're going to let you see the end. Just straight away. Like, I've never really bought into that. I always thought that the progression way of going from raid, gearing up there, advancing on, raid, gearing up there, and then advancing on to the next raid and gearing up there was the most fantastic way of doing it, because you always were working towards more. You were always working towards more. You were always looking beyond, and you knew that there was always something to strive for. And even when you saw other people, like, with better gear than you saw it and you thought to yourself, oh my god, that person is a boss. That is cool. This guy is cool. I can remember logging on to Nihilim's server, I think it was. What was it called at the time? Magtheridon? Were they on Magtheridon? I think they were on Magtheridon. They may have been, they may not have been. They probably were. And I remember running all the way from the training little area at the bottom of Durotar up to Orgrimmar, just so that I could go and see Nihilim's, like, tier 3. Like, when they were doing Nax, for example. That was such a cool feeling, to be able to see, like, these people that were fantastically fully geared out. And I didn't mind that I didn't have the gear. I didn't mind that I hadn't seen that content, because I already still had plenty to do. I had plenty to do in Molten Core, moving into Blackwing Lair, and continuing on. So, where are we? I kind of got sidetracked a little bit on the tier of items. And there is a note here saying transitioning from epics to legendaries. And this is something obviously that I never acquired in vanilla, but I was in a guild with someone that had Thunder Fury, for example, and that was the coolest thing in the world to be able to see the fact that, you know, one guy had a legendary, one guy had Thunder Fury, one guy had Sulfurous, should pronounce that correctly. Just amazing to be able to see, like, one guy had this. Didn't bother me that I didn't have it, not in the slightest. I think that, again, you know, the way in which they put on every single item, commons were good for their time, rares were good for their time, epics, even rares, like at level 60, good rares took work and effort to get, and you felt satisfied when you got them. Epics took work and effort to get, and when you got full epic, oh my god, did you feel amazing. When I got full Giant Stalker armor, like, imagine how I felt when I got full Beast Stalker armor, and then transitioning on to getting full Giant Stalker armor, I thought I was the bee's knees. I loved those shoulders, and I still do love those shoulders to no end. I think they're great. Well, whenever I play WoW nowadays, I still do transmog them. I think Giant Stalker is still cool. Where are we at? Alright, so let's have a look, see what else have we got. Alright, so we've talked about our raiding stuff and things like that. There were a few other times, like, some of the fondest memories I have of spending time with good friends over in England. I've had a friend for 16 years. I've known him for 16 years, and I can remember one of my first ever Ragnaros kills, and he came over. He came over to actually watch one of my first ever Ragnaros kills, and the amount of hype that we had to actually just get these kills. I mean, of course, now it's probably not as impactful, and I can fully accept that. If I was to get another Ragnaros kill now, it probably wouldn't be as impactful as like one of my first kills or so, or something like that. But it was the grand scale of it. It was 40 people, and I'm not necessarily saying that 40 people is as strong a system as 25-man, but because you were in cohort with 39 other people, it felt grand, it felt epic, it felt massive. And Ragnaros, even to this day, and Molten Core to this day, is still one of my favourite raids of all time. So is Blackwing Lair, because they just felt grand, they felt fantastic, and every time I go in now, I never get bored of them. Never get bored of them. I'm not playing right now, but whenever I would go back for like transmog runs and things like that, it was fantastic. Where are we at? Let's move on to PvP, because this is something that I did a lot of in vanilla. So there were a few things. I want to start with Warsong Gulch and how much fun I had in Warsong Gulch in the previous PvP system. Now in vanilla there weren't really like too many limiting factors on PvP. The resilience really wasn't a thing. Like you could, in theory, just go in with complete PvE gear that you got. You basically did, unless you actually had the first PvP set or the High Warlord PvP set, which almost nobody had back then. And when I'm talking about the PvP, I'm talking about the very first system. So I'm talking about the system that you would log onto a website and you would see people's ranks every, was it week or month? I think it was a week. But there would only ever be like one High Warlord on a server at any given time. So the very first system, when they started introducing all the titles and stuff like that for PvP. So there was Warsong Gulch, which we actually, at the time, we queued for Warsong Gulch in the northern part of the Barrens. And you would have like little communities there where you would queue with people, and the group of people that I queued with for Warsong Gulch, I actually can't say the name because it's not exactly politically correct, or it's a little bit vulgar as to what the Alliance dubbed our group being called, because we queued as 10. We had, by the end of it, we had 2 High Warlords, and I still remember their names very, very well, Noblus and Navals. And this was on Thunderhorn server, so if anybody played on Thunderhorn server way back then you're a boss. And I remember so fondly the way in which Warsong Gulch was structured back then. we tore people to bits. And the only the only time we would actually ever be rivaled was when the top 10 PvPers from the Alliance side would all queue together, and there was a huge rivalry between these two groups. Massive rivalry. It was an amazing experience to just have this rivalry of these 10 players on either side. In the previous PvP format that it was, people blew up. People absolutely just got destroyed. I remember being a hunter, sitting in bushes, aim-shotting people, and almost like one or two-shotting them. But because everybody was at that level, because everybody was in this same kind of power level where that was a thing, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the playing field is even. Like, metas define themselves. Like, if you are both given, if 10 people on one side and 10 people on the other side are given the same tools to work with, it becomes inherently balanced because they have the same tools. Even if some of those tools like just blow you up. I remember we had a mage with fantastic gear and he would destroy people. Like he would pop people completely. And obviously, like, with our two high warlords, they had great gear, they had great weapons, which I actually went out of my way once. Was it Navels? It was Navels the warrior. We had Navels the warrior and Noblus, who was the shaman, enhancement shaman, because running around with a two-handed weapon, smacking people with Wind Fury was cool. And on the other side, they had two high warlords as well. So gear-wise, it was pretty even. Like, it wasn't too big a deal. But I remember Navels very, very clearly. He didn't really have the gold. He didn't do much PvE. He only did PvP. He got High Warlord, and I remember very, very clearly. We were so excited for him getting High Warlord. We rushed. I bought him so many of the weapons, like pole arms, two-handed axes. He'd only use, I think he'd only use two-handed weapons the whole time, but. We bought him all of them because they just looked so cool at that time. They were unreachable for most people, but he attained High Warlord that week. And we bought these weapons, and he didn't even have the weapon skill for them. For most of them, he didn't even have the weapon skill. He would just... The polearm, he didn't have the weapon skill for at all, I don't think. The pig sticker, I think it was called. And he had to level it up. To use it, because we just wanted to see him use this weapon. We just wanted to see him use this weapon because it stood out so much. Because it wasn't attainable by everybody. Because it was special. That was just great stuff. And yeah, we had the most amazing times in Warsong Gulch. Really cool. Another thing that PvP in vanilla that really kind of stood out for a long time it was organized PvP events. This didn't really happen beyond vanilla in my experiences. I mean, probably it may have happened on other servers for sure, but on my server specifically, it was something that we did on the forums. Every realm had its own forum. I think they're battle groups now. I think they're all combined. I'm not sure. But for what we used to do was we would organize PvP events. Now, for anybody that didn't or hasn't really frequented Gurubashi Arena, that was something on our server that was a big deal. Gurubashi Arena in Stranglethorn Vale was a place where you could go and Horde could fight Horde, Alliance could fight Alliance, and everybody could fight each other. And we organized tournaments. We would organize tournaments there. I mean, sure, could you duel? Could you even duel back then? I can't even remember, actually. Can't remember. But in Gurubashi Arena, anything went. And we would organize tournaments. We would have gold grand prizes up for grabs and stuff like that. We would have people posted on the outsides of the arena so that people wouldn't be able to interrupt the matches that were going on that we organized. And of course, like, a lot of people may know about this one, but we would organize Tarren Mill versus South Shore. We would organize that a lot. And it would be just a great experience. Really, really good fun. I doubt you even need to organize that, to be honest with you. It just kind of pops and happens, you know, like that's just kind of how it was in Tarren Mill and South Shore. But that was something that was really cool. What else do we have here? Can't quite see too much more. There's so much that I kind of want to talk about, but I probably don't have all of the notes down to actually talk about everything that I want to talk about, and I'm probably forgetting so much because it was a long time ago. But I think, in conclusion of all the points that I've just kind of gone down, the thing overall is that I by no means think that, you know, each game is to persons each game. Like, people can enjoy whatever they want to enjoy, right? And I think there is legitimately a lot of people out there like me that for years have wanted to be able to play vanilla how it is, like, or how it was. For years and years, I've loved that. It's kind of been a big topic recently, and by no means do I dislike Blizzard. I absolutely adore Blizzard. That's why I'm making this video. I'm very, very passionate about World of Warcraft and all these other games. I wouldn't work with them so avidly if I wasn't, you know? But for me, vanilla was just an amazing, amazing experience that sparked an absolute love, an absolute desire to keep playing a lot of these games. Vanilla for me was the perfect balance of allowing me to have fun in my own little world. There was always something to do, always something to do. Ground mounts made the fact that world PvP was always a danger. You would go into Eastern Plaguelands, Western Plaguelands, and you would get ganked, you'd get killed. There were specific spots in when you were running to Molten Core, when you were running to Blackrock Mountain, that you absolutely knew you had to be careful with, because there would be a rogue sitting in a random obscure corner ready to gank you as you were running there. Like, that was commonplace, and people would, you would know their names, you would remember their names, and they would be notorious. Servers felt like a world. Servers absolutely felt like a true world where people had roles, people had true roles, and it was amazing. It was amazing in that way. If I had another opportunity to go back and play vanilla exactly how it was, I'd probably take it a lot more seriously. I'd probably find a place in a guild where I could, you know, help out wherever I could, because of that sense of community. Progress through as much of the raiding as I could. I'd probably get a hell of a lot further than Blackwing Lair for sure, and enjoy it so much, because all of the raids way back then were very enjoyable to me. Obviously, I did them like later on a higher level character, and, you know, kind of smashed through them. But their design, their bosses, everything about it just felt so cool. Like, the content felt so fantastic, and I would truly relish the opportunity to be able to do that again, to be able to relive it again and give it a much better go than I did back when I was 10 years younger, I suppose. I'm probably missing a lot here, and I've ranted on for a long time, and it probably doesn't really entertain too many people, but that's a lot of my kind of vanilla nostalgia and thoughts and excitement. And I don't know if Blizzard will, you know, change their stance on this position, but I sincerely hope they do, because I know me and my friends, every single one of them would be instantly back on that server, because of how much we thoroughly enjoyed vanilla and how much we'd love to commit to that kind of sense of community again. So thank you very much for listening to me, guys. Again, sorry for rambling, and I didn't do that YouTube cutty thing where I'm like removing all the ers or whatever. Yeah, doesn't matter. I might do some more video blogs in the future about things I feel very passionately about. I just felt I had to do this to tell you guys how much I really care about vanilla in all its quirks, all its craziness, all its systems, and I hope you enjoyed. That's me for now. I'll see you later.